This is March 23rd, the 11th episode of Talk Story.
Talking story all the time.
I can't believe we made it this far.
Cheers to you.
Cheers. It is actually really nice to be here tonight. I had a crazy week, a crazy day that ended with a pigeon in my apartment right before I got here.
Yeah, you showed me that picture. It was pretty unreal. I mean, he maybe liked that picture that he was up against. And
Oscar Sakaris, not for the birds. How do you like that pun?
That's so good.
Yeah.
But so the bird left some presents.
Yeah.
Was it hard to get out? Was it on the carpet?
I'm like, yeah, it was on a lot of stuff. It was bad. It was a bad scene. He did not want to leave.
What's your general feeling on pigeons in general? Do you think of them as flying rats and rodents and stuff like that? Or are you like, oh, it's a bird. How
you
cute.
don't know. You're baiting me, really. I have a
little chum in the water, is there?
I hate pigeons with a passion.
Oh, in general. That wasn't even just today.
No. Are you kidding? This has been an ongoing battle.
Fun fact, everyone. Fun fact. Has anybody ever seen a baby pigeon? Where do they come from? Like, you see pigeons full grown always, but you never see them as a baby.
Yeah.
I'm just
well, you can ask me another time, but I have all the pigeon talk that you could possibly want and more. I've been battling these things for years. They're a nuisance. They defecate everywhere. They actually try to lay nests everywhere. I have.
Do they have any significant purpose in the food chain, so to speak? Where if they
in Europe, they're fine where they came from. That's where they're from. They do well. They're in their own range. Right. Everything is great, and then they just proliferate in urban environments around here because it has every nook and cranny that they want to nest, and there's plenty of food. So they're on my balcony and in my apartment. Now, I left my door this much ajar so I can get a little air. It's been beautiful out. And I had a pigeon just sitting on a photo on the wall, just relaxing, like, what are you doing here? And I was like, this is where I live. What are you doing here?
And to be clear, when he says next time we might have some pigeon talk, he's not talking about Hawaiian slang.
No, I am not, despite the Aloha shirts today.
Right. It's just our feathery friend.
It is true pigeons.
But we're here now. It's Friday. Some would say Friday.
Yes, thank God.
We are sipping on some thank you surfing. And, we're going to ease our way into the weekend.
Weekly haps.
I see, first and foremost, as most have it, at least in Hawaii, it's Aloha Friday. And I've taken it upon myself to usually wear my Aloha shirt every Friday. And I want to congratulate you for wearing yours as well. I know that we'll get into this a little bit more.
Yes,
as some of our topics
I have completely copied your style. I've got the same sort of threads. I got the same sort of bigote. I've been working on this for a week. And
that would probably take someone like Mark Gamez easily a year.
It worked out pretty well in a week. I was pretty happy that it turned out.
It's not so bad.
It did. Yeah,
it's getting there.
For 7 days. Yeah, I don't think we're going much further. But anyway, we'll get into that later. Right. What other weekly haps we have? Oh, this is a big one. On Thank You Surfing right now, we have a gallery of like 100 and some odd images from everything that happened on South Beach and Miami Beach during Riley.
Really?
It is bananas.
Oh, yes, that's right. I thought.
Yeah, it is really, really sick. The stuff that we got was just all time.
And it's probably an eighth of the pictures and the content that everybody has.
They sent so much stuff over, and I was trying really hard to try to like cull it down to something reasonable. And I was like, reasonable is probably 135 images, right? I mean, it even takes the page a little bit to load, like 9 or 10 seconds, because there's so many images on that thing. I tried, but I couldn't take away some of them.
Wow.
I was going through the whole gallery like,
this is okay.
Good. I need to get some of these off of here. I'm just gonna star the ones that are good. Star, 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 star. I was like, I was like, I'm not making a gallery. I'm just like making a heap.
I'm making a mess.
I mean, yeah. I was like, why did I volunteer for this? But it turned out
labor
amazing.
of love, sir. It's a labor of love.
When I got all their images and I saw that there was like lifestyle stuff, people just like hang out on the beach. There's people like portraits almost of people coming in and coming out of the water and just
what's great about pictures and what they capture in a sense of the essence of the moment of the feeling and stuff like that, and they say that pictures can tell you 1,000 words, so to speak, and it's not just the pictures of surfing, it's not the pictures of the moves and stuff like that, but it's also lifestyle and everything going around, and as you flip through that, you almost feel like you're there, and you almost feel the energy. You almost feel that, because it's so crazy and such a great feeling. And you get on the beach and those swell moments and stuff like that, and you have onlookers that haven't ever seen that, because Miami isn't known for surf in general, let alone good big surf. Yeah. So when people come around, it's the unicorn.
Yep,
that is South Beach.
That's why we called it that. Right.
Yeah. And but it really speaks to so many different ways, and that's, I think, one of the most amazing things about surfing is what that does to us, each of us, emotionally in all different ways and whatnot.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
and like to go through it and put it all back up there. So
you definitely check out Thank You Surfing's
gallery of
awesomeness.
Winterstorm Riley.
Yes,
the unicorn.
Other weekly hops we have tomorrow. We had a death in the surf shop family about a week and a half ago, and for Malaka, and we're all still kind of processing it and trying to kind of find some reason through it. And it's been amazing to see the outpouring of love and connections within the community that kind of supports each other through the process and celebrates this man's beautiful life. And he was just so full of energy and vigor, and he was just a new one speed, and it was just all or nothing. And literally be like, dude, I love your shirt. And he'd be like, here you go. Like when he says he'd take the shirt off his back, he would give you the shirt off his back. And we're going to miss him, but we're going to do things to go ahead and celebrate his life. We have a paddle out coming up April 2nd, which is not this Monday, but the following Monday on 3rd Street. At about 6 p.m., we'll be meeting at the 3rd Street Lifeguard Tower. Please bring boards and flowers. You don't have to paddle out. You can celebrate on the beach. And if you don't have a board, we've got plenty of boards here. Please come by. All you got to do is leave an ID or a credit card, and you can go ahead and take a board out. And, the more, the merrier. We really want to go ahead and send him out into his next journey with a lot of love and a lot of presence. But also tomorrow, we'll be raising some money for his family at Purdy Lounge, which is here on Miami Beach at about 9 p.m. We'll be serving Cosquina, which is Peruvian beer, as well as some pisco sours, and all those proceeds are going to go to his family. So I'll be there. It'll be fun. DJ Maramoto, which is an old-time local from here, she'll be playing a bunch of 80s music, so it's really super fun. We're trying to get a slideshow going as well. So 9 p.m., Purdy Lounge, tomorrow, Saturday. Swing by, drink some beer, drink some pisco sours. Let's have a good time. Let's celebrate this guy's life, and let's raise some good money for his family. Nice. Past that, not much else going on other than in Wynwood at our division and skate tattoo shop. We're doing Facebook Live every Friday. So tonight that starts off at 9 p.m. and goes on. We'll have some beverages there, so free drinks if you happen to be in Wynwood. Cruise by, check out some of the antics. It's pretty funny. These guys getting tattoos that people on Facebook are voting on to see who's going to get what.
What a concept.
Yeah. I was there last week. It was too good. But besides that, we have regular artists there too. So if you want to just get a regular tattoo while that's going on, you're more than welcome to do that too. That's tonight from 9 to about midnight, and that's going on every Friday for the next 7 weeks. That's all I got.
That is the weekly haps.
That is the weekly haps. Moving on forward.
Yes.
Had a little wave yesterday.
The report and the forecast. Yes.
Had a little wave yesterday. I am still tingling. I'd only got an hour and a half out of it, but man, that hour and a half felt like a whole day's worth.
Yeah, Thursday was a good day in South Florida.
Yes, but it didn't start off that way. I came out here early morning looking, as a lot of people did, and we had the north wind seemed like it was pretty on it. The waves were somewhat minimal. I saw a lot of pelicans dive bombing, as well as bait fish jumping all over the place, and just these weird guys in gray suits cruising around.
Yeah, how about them?
And they're always been there, and it's one of those things where everyone's kind of been staying in their lane. Nobody's dealing with sharks, and the sharks aren't coming at us, so everything's cool. But it's kind of small and a little chilly to kind of jump out there.
Yeah, I've heard that from a few folks.
And at what time did it pick up yesterday?
I'd say probably around 11 a.m.
Missed it by a couple hours.
was when I first started to see more of a real swell show up.
And for us down here, for those of you that don't live down here and might check our cameras out and stuff like that, for me, an indicator is the water lapping up against the jetty. You know, you look at that jetty and you see, for swell at least, if you see some water rising and coming down and kind of just moving, or you're like, man, there's some energy moving out there. Whether you see the wave breaking or not, you're like, there's something going on right now. And for me, that's always been an indicator of strength of the surf that we get down here.
Yeah, it's totally it. And so what we had happen this week was a cold front came down, draped across the whole state, and northwest, well, actually really a west-northwest, and then a northwest wind kind of blew in. We got a little bit of a bump on Wednesday evening. It was rideable.
Just before dark.
Right before dark. And then the winds kind of sat down for a little bit up coast, and then started to blow a little bit harder again, maybe late that night. So
Did that explain why it was kind of mellow in the morning and then kind of came in a little bit later?
That's kind of what I was thinking. The general consensus was that we're going to see something real good on Thursday morning, and it really just didn't pan out that way.
Right.
It was, by 11 o'clock, it was much better than it was at, say, dawn.
So when did it turn on?
Yeah, like noon probably. Noon through the evening hours.
Because I got there at about 6:30 and surfed until 7, and I had a blast, but everybody around me was like, man, you should have been here earlier. It was just cranking all day, and I'm just like, some people are like, I've surfed the last 5-6 hours. I'm like,
yeah. It was one of those. And so interestingly, after the whole thing kind of happened, I looked back at the buoy readings, and you can actually see pretty clearly, in my opinion, why we got the conditions we got. There was that early, short period stuff that we got in the morning. Was like, oh, okay, that's fun. But, I was waiting for something a little bit bigger based on what I had seen.
Right.
And it's like, that's kind of strange it didn't show. I wonder, are we going to get skunked here? And then, lo and behold, the stuff that did show on the wind started to show up in terms of swell on the buoys. And I was like, oh, it's actually still inbound. And it should show up in about 8 hours. And I did the calculation. Basically from Canaveral south, most of our swells take, give or take, 8 to 10 hours or so to get down here. And I was like, holy cow, it was actually right on the money. The peak of that energy from the Canaveral buoy reached our shores around 8 hours after it started to show on that buoy. And it kept going until the buoy dropped, and that was around 8 o'clock at night when it should have arrived here. And I was like, oh, so
okay.
That actually verified. P.S. I have no idea where that 10-second energy came from. It's a complete mystery to science as far as I know.
And yet the Bermuda Triangle strikes again.
Yeah. It was
I'm claiming that thing.
It was a really good example of what people call a bounce swell or refracto swell or whatever
Wind
else.
swell.
The buoy showed a straight pretty much north swell at 10 seconds at 7 feet. So that's what was happening. Where it came from is really hard to figure out, because even the storm that was departing from the New England coast, marginally in our window, would have produced something more than the 12-second range or so. And so I have no idea. And, all the other forecasters out there, got a lot of guff this time.
Sure.
Because they're off just slightly.
Can we remind people that nature just does whatever she wants? And at any given point, she'll give us the indicators, and she'll cut, and you'll kind of see patterns and stuff like that. But it's not an exact science.
Okay, great segue into the forecast then, because next week.
I do this professionally, people. I don't know what you think I do during the day, this whole surf shop thing.
Yeah, he's got the segues down. Next week's forecast, I'm following the trend. Things have been good. We've been getting lows moving off the mid-Atlantic or just the New England coast, and cold fronts draping down and getting swell. Looks like, again, this week coming up, we got a storm that's going to depart the mid-Atlantic coast. It's forecast to strengthen rapidly and move up towards the northeast. All within our window, all a storm that should throw swell back in our direction. So we're looking at, again, this upcoming week, more groundswell in the water for Florida.
So what you're saying is we're going to have more waves.
Yeah.
in March.
More
This
waves
is
in March.
easily one of the best Marches I can even remember.
In terms of groundswell, I'd say you're probably right. This is usually a transition month for us, and we get a lot of wind swell, and like it's fun. Normally, we get like northeast wind swell, east wind swell at spring break. Everyone's kind of just like hanging out, and it's really warm. This has been like wintertime during the normal transition month, so I'll take it.
Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Okay.
Or a beer. Just kidding. We don't drink beer.
Never. I think that's pretty much the report and the forecast.
So what day are we looking at maybe next week? What range of dates?
Oh, yeah.
Do we have anything coming up this weekend?
No, it's looking, pretty small for the most of it. If we're down here, for sure. I mean, there's a little hint of something like sniffing around, maybe around the right tides at the right spots.
Right.
But for the most part, up the road, there's going to be a little swell.
Right.
But looking more towards
middle of the week.
Tuesday starts to become a little bit interesting. We're looking at, it's still a few days out, so it's hard to say exactly. But
how are the winds in the whole process?
Yeah, maybe not so great. So stay tuned, I would say. But we got something coming into our window. It looks like a fairly major storm. So
listen, water's moving. You got a board. Get out there.
Yeah.
You don't have a board. See me.
That is the business you're in.
Hey, listen, you need wax? See me too. Hey, you need a high five? I will give you one.
All about that business.
Well, you know. That's what keeps the lights on. And the mic's on too.
Look at that.
Segues
I'm gonna move this along here.
Let's do it.
All right. So
we got a couple topics today.
Yeah. 2 topics. One is the surf movie, and the other is how to dress like a surfer.
Right.
So the first, surf movie.
Which surf movie are you talking about?
Well, Netflix has got Endless Summer on it now. And so I was just scrolling through the other night, couldn't figure out what to watch, and I was like, it's been a little while. Let me try this out. And when I put it back on, I was like, wow.
What was the first surf movie that you can remember that you still remember that like influenced you, so to speak?
Endless Summer 2.
Endless Summer 2. Why?
Yeah.
Which part? Costa Rica?
The whole thing. I mean, really, just the intros of both of those movies are so captivating.
Right.
And I think they pull people in that are from outside of surfing really easily. And when I was watching it last night, I was like, why has this stood the test of time? Why is this so captivating to so many people across the world? And I have a bunch of different notions on that, but it's a very attractive thing that they put forth in those films.
You know, it's interesting. There's a different types of films where you have ones like Endless Summer where there's the voiceover and they kind of just carry you through this journey, and they take you to the different places, feelings, the smells, the scents, the food. And then you have surf flicks that are the music is according to the movie. Where it could be fast, it could be hard, aggressive, or it could be done in a cinematic kind of way, like Taylor Steele was doing for such a long time. Where like I think of sipping jet streams, where like that could relate to someone that's not a surfer. Like you could put that as a background.
Well, that's
video.
More like in the realm of I think Endless Summer.
Right. Right.
It was like,
but without the voice. Oh, I guess there is some talking here and there, but it's
he definitely used voiceover.
Right. But I felt like Endless Summer is a story from start to finish. I guess they're all kind of stories. You know what? Yeah, they're all kind of stories. But it's an interesting. I guess it's an interesting approach that they each different take, where you have the director or whoever is the two surfers that are in that process, because like you have sipping jet streams, a couple different surfers, and they all I guess have their own interpretations, whereas the other ones are just the same people that are going to different places nonetheless. But the impact that they have, Endless Summer was good for you.
It was Endless Summer 2 especially. It had the whole like longboard, shortboard dichotomy, and I was like, "Whoa, I didn't even think about that. I didn't know that was like a thing I could." Right. And then just the idea of traveling as part of surfing. Like surfing for me was where I was. And I was like, "Oh, there's waves here, so I'll go surfing here." The idea to like go travel somewhere else to go find a wave that you didn't know about, or it's like, "Oh, you can do that." It's like. This is a whole new realm of possibility. I was like, I didn't know that I had to learn about traveling. I was just trying to learn how to surf.
Just trying to live. But
so that I think was like a super cool part of Endless Summer 2 for me, was just like introducing that. And then, like, it was, I grew up watching Warren Miller ski movies. And if you guys are ski fans and you haven't watched anything from Warren Miller, check him out. Oddly enough, those two guys kind of grew up in the same circles.
Warren and Miller, or Warren Miller and someone else?
Warren Miller and
kidding.
Bruce Brown.
Listen, there's comedy all the time.
Sorry,
here.
I mistook that for an actual question. But Bruce Brown, Warren Miller, those guys were kind of like contemporaries, especially when it came for like the car world and moto. They were like doing like the foremost films and that stuff as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And Warren Miller was more on the ski side, and then Bruce Brown was doing a lot of the surf stuff. But they had a similar style, and they did like the voiceover. They were super into music, and like they would have all these cuts with different music and scenes, and you're right in the sense like it was like they were showing you like the food and like
Right.
the lifestyle
Right.
and the music and they would inject their own like stupid humor and like. And then what I really liked about Endless Summer,
I loved that humor, like all that zany, like.
but that became
hokey,
your humor,
right? Like how, like you surf turkey, you know, like Dick Dale music playing in the background, you know, just like bleeding on the neck of the guitar, and just like it's so good.
There's like certain lines that you can go back to in all those movies that those guys said, God, like 60 years ago now,
Right.
and they're just part of our culture.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of interesting just to see how influential like the surf movie has been. So we can go like way the hell back.
Were they prominent? Because I know you grew up in New York. Were they prominent? Like, did you have surf films happen consistently in your town, or they were?
What are you, crazy?
No.
way.
Well, because I know that down here we really did, and I remember like all the surf flicks that would come down. They usually stopped at Fort Lauderdale. They never came down to Miami, and I'd be like, "Come on, we've got surf culture down here. We got people like waves," and they would never come down here. So you'd have to venture north and do all that stuff, and it was tough. So the very limited times that we had stuff down here, everybody was at. Like I remember the first time I went to one, it was on Washington Avenue at what is now Club Madonna's. It was called the Roxy Theater.
Get out.
It was crazy, but it was the Roxy Theater, and it was like an adult theater. And so I remember going there, and it was for actually, funny enough that I have it on VHS, Surfers 2. And with Martin Potter on the cover. And I remember specifically that they had this at the Roxy Theater, and Surf Rider was there. And they were giving out pamphlets and stuff like that to become a member, and that's what everyone used to sit on. Like the seats there, and I specifically remember because it was like I went with a bunch of guys, and I remember Mikey Watson, who's an old school South Beach local here that lives in Hawaii now. I remember his grandmother lived right there off of Lincoln Road in an apartment back there. And after the surf flick, we all got pizza, and we went to his place and at his grandmother's place, and we watched the surf flick. Another surf flick, and just ate pizza and stuff like that. But it was I think it was almost like this tribal thing, like because we don't get it that often. It was like if you were a surfer and you were there, then you were a surfer, like you were part of that clique, whether you were from the north or from the south, or maybe you didn't congregate with anybody and you surfed somewhere else.
It was like
on
a
your
gathering
own.
point.
Right? It was a gathering point because there wasn't that many of us. You know, there wasn't that much going on back then. You know, and back then for me is much
Speaking of
earlier
tribal,
than it
that's
is.
like, what do they call that? A powwow.
Yes.
That's exactly what
it is
it's
very
like.
much a powwow. That's right. So Surfers 2 was actually impressive to me, and it's just that the whole, and it's still exciting to like go to surf flicks like in California and whatnot, because people still hoot and they holler and they get crazy, and you're just like, oh my God, you're transported like 30 years and you're a Grom again, and you're just like hooting and hollering, and you know, and then you're just so excited, you're so charged when you walk out of there.
I had not that experience. No. No. I had like completely different experience with this. Mine was whatever I could pretty much find at like not even Blockbuster, but like the local video store, whatever that was. And then I guess when Blockbuster came in, there was like more selection really, but it'd be like whatever was in like the sports rack of the VHS.
Wow.
It was like how to golf. It's like Jack Nicklaus's 10 tips or whatever. And then it's like next to that was like red hot surfing Hawaii action. And I was like, oh, I'm getting that one. And like I would just like rewind that stuff at home by myself. And that was like surf movies for me. That's how I got introduced to like.
It's amazing the
movies.
transition of surf flicks from the original Endless Summer. And
Well, even before that was like,
before
like
that was-
8mm stuff, just
Right.
like that you did because you were a complete nerd.
Right.
And then you'd show some of your friends, and your friends would be like, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Maybe we should do this in your garage." And the next thing you know, they're like doing it
Right.
like you saw it in a theater somewhere.
Right. Right. And you know, and it was just but like they were going to exotic places. They were going to Indo for the first time.
Oh, that's a
like
whole
on your
other
Morning
thing.
of the Earth and stuff like that. Like all and then how that transitioned into what flicks were like in the 80s.
Oh, I was looking at what just came out the other day. Forgotten Island of Santosha.
Whoa, I saw that you sent that to me today. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever seen that or even
Oh,
knew
I
about
have it. Oh
No
my,
way.
yeah, it's incredible. It's about, well, basically Jerry Lopez at Uluwatu, and like early, like they just got there themselves.
Yeah, because you get tore up there, you're screwed. I can
Yeah.
say screwed on
Yeah.
live TV, can I?
You can say anything you'd like.
Wonderful. You're screwed because you get wiped across the reef. You just gotta rub it, Coop.
Yeah, and no one's there. I
Yeah.
mean, this is very early days in Bali.
Yeah. Oh man, that's amazing. And then where it went into the 80s, and you had like things that were impressive to me were like
Well, they had a
Billabong
ton of
videos
money.
like Green Iguana and Bunyip Dreaming and all this other stuff that the Aussies were putting together. And it was just like, and then all of a sudden the music started to become just as important as the actual footage itself. That kind of just like got you going and stuff like that because it put you in that place.
It was
that,
the whole change of the industry right
was-
there in the 80s.
And then it just further told that story. It was that emotional connection to
Sometimes,
where they were at.
but sometimes I think that was, I think, the changing point. I think prior to that, there was a lot of like storytelling
Right.
and where we are and like the struggle, because there was a struggle, a lot more of a struggle than there is now.
Yeah.
People were like, "Oh man, I got to fly 30 hours." You're like, "Yeah, we flew
For days.
3 times that amount," because it was like puddle jumpers
Right.
the whole way.
And if
it's
you
like,
didn't bring your own TP, you were
yeah, it's exactly
using
right.
leaves.
Yeah.
And hopefully it wasn't poison ivy.
Yeah, it went completely different. It's like, yeah, there was no Poppy's Lane, and you're gonna go stay in a nice little spot, and
Yeah.
then someone's gonna take you out to the beach. It's like, no. You're
people are like, oh,
hack your way through.
Go to Costa Rica or wherever, you're going to stay in this bungalow, no AC. No AC?
Exactly. This is
No hot
way
shower?
before all that stuff.
Come on, I'm a grown man now. I can...
But then in the 80s, money started to come into
Yes.
the pro surf scene.
Well, industry kind of like
Right. There was
picked
like
up.
real surf industry.
Right.
And that's when we started to see like funded trips.
Right.
You're like, oh, wait, what?
Right.
We can stay at nice places now?
Right.
You're going
Right.
to pay for our airfare?
Right. And then we roll into the 90s. And then you have like the era of like your momentum area.
Yeah, I mean, you
where
can't
have-
stay 90s without momentum. I mean, that
Easily.
was
I mean, that's
it.
where all the kids came out. Oh, when they were kids, your Kalani Robs, your Kelly Slaters, everybody.
Rob
was part of
Machado and
your Shane Dorians,
Pat
Taylor
O'Connell.
Knox, Pat O'Connell, like
Yeah.
all these guys, and at that point, that's when, things just went low, like as far as like what they were doing. But back then, I mean, like, even in board designs, right? These guys had longer boards, but they were like 1 7/8 thick. But they're
Potato
they're
chipper.
doing chop hops with 6/8.
Yeah.
And stuff like that because
Totally different era.
it was completely different. And now we're like in shorter, stubbier boards. But
the music and the filmmaking style of those was completely unlike what the predecessors have been. It was less about like storytelling.
Right.
And there was just like a punk rock soundtrack. Just
it was like
short
Pennywise.
clips.
You had your, Blink 182s,
Sublime.
your Sublimes.
Yeah.
Motorhead was good back then. Like,
So this is
Ace
actually-
of Spades was like still the best song ever.
One of the craziest things that I noticed was a lot of these things that I listened to, and I was like, just music that I always heard because I watched these videos so much. It's like, oh, these bands are all popular now. It's like a weird side effect that I started to notice from like all the surf videos that I ever watched. like Shelter, which is a later one. But it was like, oh yeah, like Mason Jennings in that. Mason Jennings is now enormously popular, and he was
September
just
Sessions, and you're Jack Johnson,
exactly,
and where that kind of spawned off to and stuff like that. But it's
so influential in many different ways outside of surfing,
easily.
But anyway, back to the Momentum days.
Yeah,
those short clips, the punk rock thing. It was a completely different way, and like they even messed around with like doing like what was that? The Show. You ever see that one?
Yes.
It was like spaghetti western surf movie. Like he was like in film school, and so I guess they just sort of like doing super weird stuff.
I mean, and then you go into stuff like Loose Change. Loose Change, where it had like Rob Machado and all these guys, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we're a bunch of knuckleheads. Sketches. Let's go ahead and do sketches and stuff like that." Yeah. And it was great because then you're just like, oh, we're not taking ourselves so seriously. Oh, we're personalities. Oh, we're people. We're just having a good time. Kind of like you and I kind of just started this on having a good time and just being like a couple surf knuckleheads and let's just go ahead and have fun with it. These guys took it to a whole new level.
Yeah, they did.
Because they kind of killed it in their sections. Whereas don't watch us. And
we have no good sections.
Except this one.
We can make the blooper reel for probably. I'm hoping. My wipeouts might be good enough. I'm working on it though.
I try to start my session off with one. Actually, I don't try. It just happens. It just happens. It's just
Speaking of,
so now that we got that out of the way.
Yeah, I got this that scar from Riley's healing up pretty nicely. I'm a little concerned that I got too much sun, so I may scar permanently.
And your modeling career might be on hold now?
I don't know.
Unless they have a spot for the creepy van guy.
Yeah, I've got this good mustache going, so there's a lot not working in my favor right now as far as the modeling career is going.
I like the mustache. I'm not gonna lie. I wish people might chime in and say, you know what, Bradley, keep the mustache. Let's see. I mean, have you ever tried growing it, like getting there, like?
I did one of those Movember things, and I did this is a week, so you can imagine.
It's not bad.
4 weeks.
It's pretty decent.
I think in 4 weeks it would be pretty serious.
Listen, when you start chewing on it with every meal that you have, and then you're like pulling out hair as you're doing it, then you're like, okay, maybe this should be trimmed.
It's not for me. Sounds awful.
It sucks.
Yeah, well, we'll see next week if this is still here. We definitely came way off the surf movie topic here.
I mean, I'm wincing. I know, sorry. We'll keep moving forward. But the influences of these surf flicks and what they've done to surfing, because at the momentum time, at that point, progression was starting to really kick in.
But it was because VHS was out, I think, and it was everybody, you could, I don't know, there was like VHS of the Month Club,
and I mean,
Columbia
you had
House,
all these old school videos, like you had all the Lost videos. I mean, all the Lost videos were there.
And then the Lost videos, Lost Across America, Lost
at Sea. What really went wrong? There's like the 5.5. This is the Redux one, but the original 5.5 was out of control.
By the way, the Redux does include the original 5.5 19 1/4 and a whole lot of extras. If you want to get a very long surf movie at a very cheap price, you want to buy a 5.5 and 19 1/4? Yeah, 19 1/4 Redux.
But you can't buy it here because nobody sells them anymore.
Yeah, no one sells these. I don't know where you'd even
You're
get
going to have to jump online. People, I remember somebody asked me the other day.
I have one also, oddly. There's a lot of Curran in this one.
Yes. Talk about Curran. God, the
Curran,
searching for Tom Curran.
Yeah, you got Curran in a mohawk riding what looks like the new Tomo boards.
Right.
Back then. So you want to pick this one up, folks.
So good. But
Lost at Sea.
Right. But all those videos are all the DVDs and VHS are kind of obsolete at this point. Like, I can't remember the last, I remember about 10 years ago when we got into this game as far as starting a surf shop, you know, it was important to have a good rack of DVDs for people to kind of. Oh my
gosh! Yeah.
So like I remember having my orders and stuff like
rack.
that. Yeah. No. Like, and it probably we kind of held on to that for a couple of years, and it slowly just went away out of demand. I guess people just didn't like it. It became a novelty for like Christmas as a gift, you know, stocking stuffer. But past that, now you can go ahead and just download stuff. You know, Garage Entertainment has like stuff where you can kind of just go. I mean, I'm a subscriber towards it. You go ahead and pay X amount of dollars per month or for the year, and you get access to just not only just surfing, but you have snowboarding and all sorts of levels. Yeah, it's really
sounds like I have another monthly subscription. I just wait for like people to put it out on social media, and they're like, "Hey, we just did another edit. Check it out on Vimeo. Check it out on YouTube."
Right. And so now it becomes engagements where now we like as a surf shop we work with surf companies and everybody else, and it becomes a gathering point and it's more marketing than it is the actual, making any sort of money off of it. I mean, there's just so much that goes into the production of these things, from the sleeves to the actual DVD and to the pressing and stuff like that. So now with everything being digital, right? Yeah. Now with everything being digital, it's just like direct to consumer. So,
Yeah, and fast.
And things change, but it's influenced.
It's still surf movies. It's still, I still like to see like full length stuff. I still like to see the shorts.
I wonder if anybody younger or people that are just getting into surfing kind of look into some of I wonder if there's a way to kind of look into some of the old surf flicks to be able to understand where things have kind of progressed. I mean, I don't know if there's everybody that's a nerd out there like that, but you kind of nerd out a little bit and you're just like Kelly Slater's Black and White. I mean, that is just
what I should
OG.
do? I should put together a list of these things and post them as like a blog post.
I will help you with this list.
Required viewing.
Yeah, I will help you with this list, and shortly we'll have it on the Thank You Surfing.
Yeah, shortly. Thanks for throwing me.
Hey, how's that list going?
Oh gosh.
Page.
Yeah, maybe we'll have. No, we can do. We can also maybe get some help from everybody out there in the world, and just be send me your list, and we'll just start compiling it or something.
Is there an email or a place that they can go ahead and just send you some information?
They can always contact me at thankyousurfing@gmail.com or through any of the social media. We're out there.
DM, do whatever.
You can also find me on the beach.
Yeah.
I am on the beach quite often, especially when there's waves.
Yeah, and I'm here at the shop.
Yeah. Drop off a list to him.
Drinking soup.
Next topic is... Oh, you know what? I want to bring Caleb, who has been doing our audio and visual, into the mix. Hopefully nothing blows up while he's doing this.
Except our live feed.
Because we're going to... Oh, wow. Another seg. I don't know if that's a segue. You're like the hype man and segue guy.
Listen,
now?
It's Winter Music Conference right now.
Oh,
there are things going out there. There are people partying. It is, and it's funny. It's one of those things where just going out surfing yesterday, I made a comment where I was just like, oh my God, I feel like we have waves every Winter Music Conference. Because I remember sitting out in the water, and Nikki Beach is right across from us. And for those of you that may not know, it's just a beach club that is just all about that electronic music. Mm-hmm. And it's super hot and chic and stuff like that.
A lot of bass.
Right, but you can definitely hear it in the water. And it's one of those things where you're waiting for a set and you're like, oh my God, I am bobbing to the... Stop it!
Yeah, and on the weekends, you get like the bacon coming from Big Pink and the eggs and a little bit of bass, suntan lotion. It is a very bizarre place.
But it's great because it throws people off, and then a set comes through and you're like, is that song? They're like, what? And then you're like, boom, I got you! It's a chess match out there. Mm-hmm. Caleb, you want to jump in here?
Caleb, let's get you in the middle of this.
All right. Cable.
Speaking of facial hair, this guy. Look at this.
This is what happens when you don't do anything for a long time.
That's beautiful.
So
God, it's so good. For those of you that can't grow facial hair, be envious.
What we
just give it time; it'll come.
It's good.
That's a good advice, actually. It does. The topic we're about to get into is how to dress like a surfer. I think I've done my job. I've copied Chris.
Apparently, I'm a surfer.
He owns a surf shop, so I think that's a pretty good indication that I've got the style correct. I've got a mustache. I've got an Aloha shirt.
But what is style?
Caleb, I don't know if he's a surfer. It's kind of confusing. He might be. He might not be.
Good. I want to confuse you. That's good. That's my goal.
Which actually brought up the whole question. Like, how do you dress like a surfer? What the hell does that even mean?
I mean, throughout time, it's changed, right? I mean, you have in the 50s, and you had kind of like that, like, you had the Pomodoro, you had like kind of like a certain look. It was kind of still kind of greaser-esque when you were kind of dressed up a little bit. But, I mean,
but where are they jacking that look from? Probably like car culture and stuff, right?
Yeah, because at the same time, car culture is still a big part of the surf culture a little bit. You have a lot of guys that really kind of get into bikes and motorcycles and the mechanics of things, and it just, I guess, the nature around your normal area will influence what you look like. So we're in a metropolitan city, being in Miami, an international city, and there's so many different flavors and
right. So like the Aloha shirt would be so typical of our environment.
Sure. I mean, I think it's not really, but I think it's, it's one of those things where in Hawaii, you have a dressed down, business like a look would be an Aloha shirt and some slacks, in Hawaii.
For sure.
And here it would be a guayabera, if you were doing that same concept. So, but I think the Aloha shirt still kind of represents some, a little bit of a dressed upness, but at the same time, it's still relatively casual. I mean, but I think maybe people look at it and say,
resort wear.
Yes.
Yep.
That's basically it.
You're
That's
either
what
an
it's.
old man on vacation or you're a surfer looking at you.
True story. True story.
That's it. Which is why I think it's so funny.
But style is based on interpretation, right? It's for within each one of us how we interpret what we feel, how we look, how we want to present ourselves. Perception, as Rudy had mentioned kind of earlier, and that changes. I mean, again, Caleb's a surfer, and he's dressed kind of relatively casual and kind of hipster, and he's just hip. Maybe he's not hipster because I feel like there's such a negative connotation to hipster. It really is. It's like everyone's like hipster. What, man bun? Has he got something underneath there?
He's just trying to use like young kids' vocabulary.
What crazy kids are using these days? I mean, but like
his style is no style.
I mean, but how much effort is there? How much effort is there? Like how much effort do you put in every morning when you're getting dressed?
Pretty much zero.
That's good.
And when you shop, do you shop for clothing?
Excuse me?
Right. I guess not.
This shirt was given to me by my brother. I think I got these pants because I needed to. Someone was like, you need to have gray pants. I was like, okay, I need to buy gray pants.
Where does one get this gray pants?
And I went on Amazon and I bought these gray pants from
Amazon.
Volcom.
Jesus Jesus
But that was pretty much the extent of... where I do buy a lot of clothing is for my friends and relatives here at First Shop.
Great plug. I like him. But I mean, like for you, like, do you put much effort into how you look? Like,
do you think about it as like,
so
does it represent being a surfer?
Dressing like a surfer, I want to dress not like a surfer.
What does that mean then?
Because I don't want people to look at me and think I'm a surfer. So if I go out in the water and I like don't suck, then they're like, oh, there's a guy that's not a surfer that doesn't suck. But if I roll up with like long hair and like a Hawaiian shirt and all the whole thing and like, what's that, bro? Like the whole and then I go out there and I suck. They're like, well, some sort of poser.
So much pressure on me right now.
Interesting.
So you dress for like another sport,
right?
Or like dress like a farmer. That's my go-to. Dress.
Throw 'em off.
If you're gonna go play volleyball, you wear like indoor soccer shoes. Because they're like, oh, well, he sucks at volleyball, but maybe he plays soccer really good.
Right.
So
I see.
just like
You lower
the expectations.
It's not even like a lowering of expectations.
You catch a wave and they're like, oh, okay, cool. You don't have to shred. You just have to like be out there.
Misdirecting everything.
Exactly.
But listen, there's truth to that because I remember when I lived in Hawaii, like you had all these Japanese people. The Hawaii to Japanese people is like Miami to New York people. Like it's their Riviera.
Okay.
And so you would come and they would just buy boards and like they would have walking out to the beach. They had the bleached hair, and they would just be labeled out, and the boards got complete labels all over the place. And if you were to just look at them,
all I can think is Dumb and Dumber when he walks out, all set up like in the speed skiing
super
gear.
set up. Like you're just like, and like you would see some of them, and you'd be like, they would look like they'd rip, and you're just like, oh, this kid must kill it.
Yeah, but then he's got his fins in backwards or something, and you're like...
But it's one of those things where those impressions matter, because you go out in the water, and your surfing really kind of dictates where the pecking order in the lineup, right? Because somebody sees you surf, you goofed it on the big set wave, all of a sudden you're goosed, you're in the back of the line, so to speak, All of a sudden you look like you fit the part, but all of a sudden you can't even catch the wave, and you look like, you're... coconut ball stance on the board, and you're just like compete wide stance, you're no good, and people are like, oh, and then all of a sudden you've now become that guy. So I get it.
You gotta look the part.
If you downplay it, where you're just like, I look like I suck, I whatever, and then you kill it, people are like, oh, homie knows what's up. Homie knows what's up.
Low expectations via style. Interesting.
Now the secret's out though, so.
But like when you shop, do you go shop at surf shops, or you just find your stuff wherever something attracts to you? Do you specifically go shopping? Because there's, people go, hey, I need to buy new clothes. I'm going to here, and I'm going to buy clothes. And some people are just like, I just pick up stuff along the way.
I get a lot of hand-me-downs. I wear a lot of hand-me-downs. Rudy gave me the shirt. It's never... Shopping at Rudy's is always good. I don't even know what it is.
What's that, velvet? I'm just
What is this, velvet?
Something nice.
Herbs and berries in there?
I bought this hat at a thrift store in Colorado.
It's a cool hat.
It is a cool hat. I saw it. I was like, for $3, of course.
Well, there you have it.
And then I put the... Which side is that? Yeah. We got some branding there. Yeah.
Some sort of like opportunistic fashion sense.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Opportunistic, that's the good description of it. If it's cheap and easy to...
Yeah, and I find it weird that I even got into retail because growing up, I was just like, whatever, like hand-me-downs as well, this and that. But within the whatevers, I still had within myself, and that was just me, a personal sense of how I wanted things to match. Or the little subtleties, like, like the yellow hit on a shirt might be subtle, and then it might draw the attention to a pair of socks for whatever reason.
Oh, wow.
And but it's like, it's really subconscious, and a lot of the merchandising
Doesn't sound subconscious. Sounds very conscious in
your
mind.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, it's very conscious. But as I layer it or dress it and stuff like that, I want to touch into the subconscious. So it's one of those like, I decided what I want it to look like, but I want others to make it to see it or view it as if like, oh, that's just super casual. Oh, like just the random little hits.
So you put a lot of work into looking like you didn't put a lot of work into it.
I don't put a lot of work into it.
I think that's what fashion is. I've heard that. I've heard that definition.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
You know how long it takes to make your hair look like you just woke up? Or you can just wake up.
And
is
this
that
is
a
a perfect
question?
example. Is it's a duality, right? There are people that maybe take a lot of work into doing things and stuff like that, and there are people that just kind of feel because it just feels this way. You just kind of layer it and you put it together, so that it does seem like there is some sort of little bit more effort, or there is an effort coming in, but it's not so preconceived and contrived, and you're just like, I'm going to spend time in making this happen. It's just what it makes you feel, and that's kind of how we merchandise the store as well and stuff like that. We look at colorways and palettes and stuff like that, and I look for just the random little hits. It could be the smallest colorway on a label that kind of just like stands out, and then I'll put it next to a shirt that might have that same colorway that's completely different. And to some, you look back at it and you're like, okay, but then there's something subconscious that draws it or ties it all together. And for me, I'm about that subconscious tie together that works for me. But I end up pulling from my sale rack more than anything else. I'm not like, oh, I love that, I'm gonna pull it. I'm just like, what do I got in my size on a sale rack that works for me? You kind of build things and you build your inventory. And
that's
then
the
you take it from
opportunistic
there.
side of it,
Right.
I think.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of women, and it's funny, this kind of translates into how women and men shop differently. Like men, we compartmentalize things a little bit where we're just like, I need board shorts. Where's the 34s? Or where's the 32s? Or where are these? Okay, you look within what's your size. What do I have to choose from? Cool. Done. Whereas I've noticed, and I've been told from some women, they just know what's in their closet. They have a great inventory collection going on up here, and they buy pieces that just add on to whatever it is that they have. They just buy pieces add on. They buy pieces, so they keep an inventory of what they got, and they add on to it. Whereas for us, it's a little, for guys, I feel it's impulse buys a little bit more, where you're just like, something just speaks to you at that moment.
It's either
easier.
complete impulse or complete necessity.
Right.
There's like nothing between the two for me.
Right.
It's like, I have no socks. I need to buy socks, I think, because I have to wear them all of a sudden.
Right. And if you happen to be in a store where they carry Ruka socks, you'll buy them. Or if you happen to be in Walgreens and they have some socks and you remember, I'll buy those.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter.
Unless I was looking for really cool socks, which has never happened in my life.
But there are a lot of cool socks out there.
I know. I'm actually thinking about changing my sock game.
Well, listen, I don't, like, before the sock game got so good, like between Stance and Richer and Poor and stuff like that, like years ago, like 10, 12 years ago, I wanted to do a sock company because I felt socks was the working man's tie. It was because
this is what you're pushing forward.
No, I mean, like years ago, well, everyone's doing it now, so what's the point? But it was one of those things where like the sock was so subtle. It was one of those things where
is the
where
working man's tie.
Well, like a tie, right? There's certain colors that create power, that create energy. There's something that translates into it. Where if you're wearing it at a certain time, you walk into a room, it commands a certain kind of attention. Whereas socks, it's this subtle look. It's like there's 2 inches at the bottom of the cuff of your pants, whether you're wearing pants that are like like super hipster high, or you even got a little lower. At some point, you get to see the socks. But it's one of those things where if you notice somebody's socks from a distance and it's got some pizzazz or some sort of color, and then again, I'm just talking from my perspective, that I'll look and I'll be like, oh, this guy's got a little something in him. This guy's got a little, pizzazz going on, And for me, it spoke more volume than just having your white tube socks.
Well, it's because guys are generally allowed to make decisions on two things: socks and ties. Everything else is like gray, black, or
That's
navy.
all predetermined, yeah.
And so it's
that's
like
the only thing you can put that's like colorful.
exactly. It's
Maybe like a little kerchief.
which is why
in the
Jerry
pocket.
Garcia had his ties. He had like a whole tie collection.
Right?
And
Yeah,
he's like,
I have one.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
But it's true, like those little things. But it's weird how the and that's so much, I think, of fashion and stuff like that, where they tie into it's that emotional connection. What does it do for you? Again, I refer back to my over 20 pairs of board shorts infatuation that I have, that I can't get rid of certain ones. I've got a bunch of shirts that I pack up and I put aside because it's like there's some sort of feeling to it. There's some sort of connection. And as a retailer and how we do things at here and merchandise and stuff, it's my job to curate what the brand story is going to be and how that emotionally connects to the person that's coming in here, so that they say, this makes me feel something. I'm gonna put it on. And aside from with the experience of being here and the conversations we have, where they're just like, I remember this shirt or I remember these shorts from that time I purchased it from over here, But those experiences don't necessarily just happen at retail stores or happen at restaurants. They happen at different places. We're seeing so much more of that curation.
People like to come to a surf shop because there's something about it.
Right.
Well, we've talked about it here before.
Right.
I think is like when they come out and they buy something, like they feel good.
Right.
They feel cool. There's something about dressing like a surfer, whatever that means to whoever is wearing it. And I don't even know like what is like a surfer inspired outfit or look, because it's changed so many times. It's like used to be super short shorts that were like made out of canvas. It's like, is that surfer style? Or is it like,
we're back to short shorts again. You know?
So I don't know what exactly it is, but apparently like surfers have had like a compass on it that people have been like, oh, whatever they're doing, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to follow that.
Well, surfing had always been counterculture for such a long time. And then it became part of culture. It became its own culture, of which other industries and other cultures borrowed from. So, all of a sudden you had the fashion industry jumping into it. You had just even the retail industry. I mean, like, where do you think the birth of Hollister came from? Abercrombie needed something to combat, where Quicksilver was coming to in the early 2000s as far as building all these retail stores at the malls and PacSun, your Buckles, your Tillys and stuff like that. And they were like, and they fabricated a story. Hollister is built off of a made up story of some guy in a shed in Northern California.
Love it.
And all of a sudden, but you walk in, and it's like the scents that they put in the air. It's the low lighting. It was the fact that all their staff would ignore people. Still don't understand that. Don't understand that part. But for whatever reason, it killed it for them. And people that bought stuff there, whether you were in Wisconsin or whether you were in the coastline of Texas, you felt like you were a surfer because you bought that stuff.
Right.
And it's so weird where it came from to where it went through industry and through the necessity for making money, or the others' necessities for making money, and where we're at now. We're now, because of the retail world has gone through a little bit of purgatory for the last couple of years, online purchasing and stuff like that, where it's different. The early 2000s, where we're kind of like, as a surf shop owner, you can go ahead and throw a dart at whatever and you'd sell it because surf was cool, as far as dressing like a surfer again. And then, economy tanked, things kind of went weird, and everyone's been kind of figuring things out. But I'm noticing there's a lot of brands like Quicksilver and like Billabong that are starting to now return back to the root of what made them cool as far as culture, and going away from worrying about so much of their bottom line that they used to, and oversaturating the market and putting product in different distribution channels like your Marshalls and stuff like that, which unfortunately kept someone like me away from brands like that, because I'm like, I'm not going to feed people out there the same thing that you can get at Marshall's down the street, and it's going to be $20 less. It's like, why? What's the point? A lot of what we do is try to protect the integrity of the clothing and making sure that what you're wearing is only one of 7 or one of 10 out there, And I think people have kind of come to appreciate that individualness that it is in wearing your product. And when you can find a place that you can find stuff that is not oversaturated, that so many people are wearing it, kind of makes you feel a little better. At least makes me feel better.
That's a different angle on it.
Yeah, but those are for people that might shop at particular shops, because obviously you guys' shopping patterns are completely different than everyone else's. Well, listen, that's what keeps me in business, hustling, trying to make guys like you change your ways. I'm hopefully, putting shorts out there that you guys are like, you know what, I'm gonna throw this guy a bone. That's kind of cool.
Well, I think that just there's a certain way people carry themselves that more defines dressing like a surfer. So I have a friend that saw a picture of me in a suit, and she was like, "That's so funny. I can still tell you're a surfer and you're wearing a suit." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I think it was just this, you carry yourself differently when you surf. You can kind of
how you wear it.
You can kind of I could look at you and I could tell you surf now just because of the way you carry yourself almost. Or
what is it? Is it the easygoingness? Is it the shoulders down a little bit? I mean, is it the...
And it's not everybody,
surf
clearly, but it's almost like a mafia where it's you can kind of tell by the way
right.
And it may not be immediate, but it's okay, that guy's wearing Vans.
Right.
Vans generally is a counterculture, skate, snowboard, surf shoe. Interesting enough, maybe he just wears those shoes because he likes them. Maybe he's a surfer. And then it's next thing you know, it's oh, he's at an event where a band's playing where 2 to 3 guys in the band are also surfers. And you're okay, now you've got a guy wearing Vans that's at a concert that's 2 to 3 guys. It's you start to build a case for it almost, and you're
you see a guy walking down the street here early in the morning when you think there might be a wave, and he's wearing a Hurley hoodie or something. You're
right.
I could probably ask him how it is.
Right.
I don't recognize him, but I could
Right.
I could ask him how's it look out there.
right because of the location that he was
And it's
the hour.
70 degrees and he's wearing a hoodie, so
Yeah, so
It
there's
must be Miamian.
certain peculiarities that we carry. It's if you... Oh, it'd be another one. It's if you have a tub in the back of your car, a big for your wetsuit or something like that, and you're just oh.
I drive a truck. I don't know what that's about.
Oh, well.
Me too.
Yeah, we've got... Yeah, it's a Northeast thing. Maybe it's not so
No,
relevant
right.
here,
I get it.
where it's just
we're
certain
dirty
calling
down here.
cards that you can look at. It's oh, or right now, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I've got a pretty good wetsuit tan going. And so it's
My hands are sunburned
Yeah,
from yesterday. Just
yeah.
my hands.
Do you have the top of your neck burned and the bottom of your neck completely white? You're probably a surfer.
I'll tell you what, I go to expos and shows and stuff like that, and they're mostly all surf skate driven. But I went to the Outdoor Retailer show this past summer in Utah, and I was invited to kind of look because
interesting.
it's all these other sports, from rock climbing to camping to kayaking to paddleboarding, but it was just all these other sports. And for me, it was just interesting that on the fashion side, you have to ask yourself, well, what do these board sports have to offer in regards to fashion and whatnot? We see where surfing's come from. We see that skating, spawned off with the surfing part and stuff like that. And
Less North Face is what they have to
right.
offer.
It's way less North Face. I mean, it's no more puffy jackets and stuff like that.
They're warm though. I like
Right,
those.
those are great.
Yeah,
They're,
they make a
but
good
those are
puffy jacket,
but those are
but-
those necessity pieces. Those are necessity pieces. But I noticed that there were a lot more brands that were really moving in that fashion forward direction. But
Really?
in shorts for summer and stuff like that, they're still producing 4-way stretches, and they might be adding a loop on the short for your carabiner, if that's how you say it. God, I'm so bad at this. I wish I knew. But
Could you tell everybody apart? Could you tell the rock climbing crew from the surf crew and stuff like that?
But there was no surf there. But you could. But it felt like everybody was still under that same umbrella. It's transitioned to it all. We're all in it together, so to speak. We're all kind of the differences were so minute, and they were more geared towards that sport that they were doing. But certain cuts and just even the fact that there was even any sort of direction in fashion was the impressive part. That it wasn't just that really rough 50/50 cotton that you're getting at a gas station and stuff like that. That you're just like, it's wearable if you're fixing your house.
That industry
but not
is
if you're
so
going
much
out.
bigger than surfing.
Right.
The rest of like outdoor sports compared to surfing is ginormous.
When I was there,
Like
I
take
didn't
fishing,
know it, but
for example.
the outdoor market is about 1/6 of the country's GDP.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
1/6 of the country's GDP is the outdoor market.
Yeah, we love
that's-
outdoor recreating.
That's everything. So it goes to show you.
America.
Yeah, well, it's a
incredible.
testament to the fact that they moved this show from Utah, Park City, Utah, that it had for over 30 years. They moved it to Colorado because the governor decided to go ahead and open up all the state parks to oiling. Well, I believe it was to.
They were selling off rights to certain lands that were previously set aside for preservation.
Right. And so it pissed off everybody.
Not only did they do that, but they did it in a way so that there was critical habitats that were kind of like pathways for wildlife that became separated from each other, essentially bifurcating the way nature worked.
Right.
So it's like you might as well have just taken all of it because you took these two pieces of it.
Right.
Things like this.
Right.
So
but it forced a huge industry to move from that state to somewhere else where...
Turns out the lobby for outdoor sports is enormous due to the fact that they are such a huge part of the economy.
And when I was there, I was talking to like waiters, bartenders and stuff like that. And they were all so bummed because they knew that this would come and that show would come every year or twice a year. And at that point, it just generated so much money for them that in those small towns that sometimes don't get a lot of activity or action, that holds them over for 4 or 5 months, you know? And so it's a big detriment to them now. And, you know, Colorado, here you go.
We went way
Off the topic.
How
That's the
long
beautiful
are we?
thing about what we do.
We went into Colorado.
We probably overpassed Instagram Live too.
Oh, we're getting there. I think we're almost at an hour. But you know, but that's what this conversation's all
No,
about. It goes wherever.
But that's the whole thing. So like surf style did like dressing like a surfer or whatever the heck that means did influence other sports to have their own style. And now some of those things have pushed back to the point where they're like political forces. And you can almost like recognize these things in terms of trade shows, and they're like their own economic.
It stopped. Let me restart it.
Oh, dancing. We're dancing.
Well, they're like their own economic force. And so like dressing like a surfer is now like changing where people are holding giant conferences and maybe even changing the way laws are written or laws are pushed back. It's just, it has, I guess, like a calling card towards a movement or towards like a lifestyle that if you dress like a surfer or you dress like a rock climber or you dress like a fisherman or you dress like a hunter, whatever those things are, like
right.
If you're wearing like real camo, like
right.
People are hanging out and just like going to the bar. I'm like, yeah, my real camo. I was in my nice new one. And it's like,
get
what?
her done.
Yeah, and like that's part of their culture now too. So I don't know like how many other cultures happen like that.
But I guess I could relate to anything, right? I mean, if you were in the deep south and you're cruising around and you see somebody with like full on camo garb and stuff like that, you're gonna probably think that the person's a hunter.
Right.
They're probably hunting wild pig and boar.
Not so much anymore.
No.
That's the cool thing. That's just like surf stuff. It's
right.
like if you see a guy wearing like we were talking about before, like the guy in Japan who's like decked out.
Right.
Fins in backwards, like Zinka, whatever. Look the part, but you can tell
Zinka.
something's a little off. Same thing. It's like the guy that's like wearing like real tree camo at the bar. You're like, you probably don't hunt. Or maybe you do, but you're not really like about the game. And it's just they kind of like take from the culture a little bit and they pull it into fashion.
But you know, I think at certain points there's certain pieces like shirts, hats, and stuff from certain companies that represent certain sports that people just identify or want to wear it because they want people to. It's a flag, right? It's a flag that you wear. For example, we have fishermen
That's
down
it.
here.
It's like a calling card
Right.
almost.
You're letting people know where you stand. So you know, with fishermen or people that fish down here and stuff like that, they love companies like Ocean Grown Gear, or they love this company or that company, because if they wear that, they letting people know, I fish. I do this, Pelagic, all these other companies. And the same thing that was such a huge identity for surfing, where if you wore Volcom, if you wore Quicksilver, O'Neill, you kind of represented what that culture was about. Right. And what I found interesting in over the years of being in surf retail was that people kind of just gravitated to certain companies and said, I'm a Volcom person. I'm an O'Neill person. I'm a this kind of person.
Well, yeah, it started to like move beyond surf cult, beyond just being a surfer and representing that in your fashion. It was, I'm a surfer that wears Volcom because it's this. Right. Or I wear Billabong because it's like that, or what have you.
So that whatever it is that speaks to you in regards to what that company represents. And I found that 10 years ago when we launched into this surf world of stuff, that we worked with companies that weren't the big box brands completely. You know, we worked with smaller companies that most people weren't given much shelf space for, from Dayhouse to Critical Slide Society to Insight way back in the day, Iron and Resin, Rourke, and a lot of them had a great story to tell, like campfire stories, but it was different. It wasn't your typical surf clothing. It was just cool clothing, things that you could wear out to dinner as a casual dinner, or things that you could just, it was just wearable every single day. And it wasn't just something that was super branded. And it was just, they went subtle, you know, and they kind of just told a story in what they wore.
It's kind of like they went back to stuff that surfers wear that became in like the popular realm, surf clothes. Right. It's like, no, these are just clothes. Right. And it's like, why did you call them surf clothes? It's like, well, you surf, right? You're like, uh-huh. It's like, well, all you guys wear that stuff. Right. And it could, back in the day, it was like Keds, denim, and like a white t-shirt. Right. Right. Probably with like cigarettes rolled up in like one.
And then as we get into the 90s, like all the board shorts were like 22 inches long. They were way past your knees.
Yeah, you know? That was the day.
And if you
bring those back.
And then if you were a Cali guy, you were like, you know, way past your legs. And, you know, you had the Dickies that were super long. And then when Junkos came in and stuff like that, but you had the long tube socks as well.
Yeah, I need long board shorts.
You know, so, but, you know.
Beyond my knee. Always, please.
Those get in the way.
I know, but that's where now we don't carry anything longer than 20 inches over here, you know, for the most part. Like it's all at the kneecap or less. I want to institute
the Catholic school rule for girls' skirts, for guys'
shorts. Two fingers or two fingers over the kneecap?
Put your hand at your side, and wherever your hand falls, your skirt has got to be.
I just bought these shorts at Walmart. When I was in Colorado, we had to buy team shorts because we're out there skiing. Things went sideways, got a little western. We couldn't do the trip we were planning on. We wind up doing a random day in the hot spring. We had to buy team shorts because no one had shorts to get in the water with because it's snowy, right? So
snow in Colorado.
Yeah. So we go to the Walmart and we come across these like $5 9-inch inseam bright green shorts. Huh. They surf terrible because they don't stretch it. Like they're super uncomfortable, but they're the best looking shorts that I have. Like I don't know why you want shorts way down function. Here.
The age-old problem.
I can't. I've worn them like twice and they're terrible. But
you like them.
But they look so good. They're like bright green and they're like to here. It's just not even like it's not appropriate. But it's so good. I don't know why you want shorts flapping around past your knees, but the short ones. But
all those styles have changed over the years. You know, you went in the 90s in a certain way and then the early 2000s a certain way. And we're at where we're at now. And I feel like it's kind of like morphed itself, at least with what we do here, to being more about, you know, does it feel good? You know, it's not about the branding.
Those don't feel good. Right. If you can hook me up with those shorts that feel good, I'll pay money for that.
I got you.
All right, next we're coming up with a private label for Caleb.
It's just be bright green and really
nothing
short.
But short shorts and
bright green and really
bright
short.
Green colors. I think we've got a bestseller on our hands.
Yes. I think it'll work.
Bisla, looking at you. We've got a creator.
Can you make it with coconut and plastic bottles?
Yeah, coconut upcycle.
Yeah, upcycled green short shorts.
Which is a lot of what companies do, right? I mean, they're kind of always pushing the edge a little bit in what they're doing. So the materials that they use as well, from
I think we may have fallen off the edge on that one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, that is dressing like a surfer. You are a surfer, so
Just how you want. If you want some help, come on over. I'll help you out.
Yeah, someone will emulate it for sure.
Doesn't matter. But Brad, thank you for emulating my outfit today.
Yeah, I mean, I think I did a pretty good job.
And might I add, I think he should keep the mustache, and let's see how far he can go.
Well, we'll let the fans decide. Actually, we will definitely not let the. I'm probably gonna shave like tomorrow morning.
No.
But it's been a little bit of fun. Actually, on the way over here, just quick segue into this. I was skating over, and this guy in a truck just looks over at me, and just gives me like this nod, and I was like, the only thing I could possibly think
Aloha shirt.
is the mustache and the Aloha shirt has given this guy some sort of reason to nod, like I'm also driving a truck, or like Jeep drivers, they like kind of like.
Oh yeah, there's like an unspoken brotherhood of the beard.
Yeah.
But when somebody speaks it gets really weird.
It's true. I remember when I grown out
Well,
the
I
beard
think
a
I'm
little
doing it
bit.
right now because
Yeah,
this guy
you
like
get the
this
yeah,
guy-
you went
this
through
guy,
the
like-
itchy phase.
yeah, this guy
Good
was like,
on.
"What's up?" I was like,
Dude, the mustache commands power, bro.
I had like different experiences walking down the street, and there's like little children playing, and like parents are like flocking their children closer to them.
You're at the
like,
early stage right now, which
I
is
was
a
like,
creepy stage.
I don't really like this anymore.
Give
I
it
don't
time.
think.
Give it time.
No, I
takes.
think I'm probably done with this. If you guys see with this next week, it's probably because they bet me.
Well, I'll say that, the mustache, as soon as it grew in, all of a sudden commanded attention. I mean, we're like the other day when we were surfing a couple weeks ago and we saw Austin,
Yes.
in the water. He was just like, I've seen that mustache. I like it.
Yeah.
That guy's from Thank You Surfing. I'm like, really? This thing? Well,
I spotted that on the road the other day.
That's right. You
First
told me.
thing, I see him off the island, like out in the wild, and I was like, through the driver's side window, like, I think I know that mustache. And then he comes around and big first sticker on the back of the truck. I'm like, yeah, that's Chris.
This is kind of
There
weird.
you go. You want to stand out in the world? It's not about fashion. It's about the mustache or facial hair.
This
or
thing is
this beautiful
definitely
thing
going to
right
go.
here.
This thing's definitely going to go. All right, so this
Let's
is
clear this up.
apparently Surfer Style is having facial hair this week. Stay tuned next week where you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I might not have a mustache.
I will probably not have one. I'm guessing Caleb will probably have this whole thing
It's
going.
probably not going to go anywhere. Too lazy to shave.
Caleb, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that was sweet. Bomb. Bomb.
Lead us out of here, Bradley.
Done.
Thanks so much for joining us for Talk Story, episode 11.
Don't forget, tomorrow we'll be at Purdy Lounge at 9 p.m. to celebrate Malaka's journey onto his next trip
Yep.
into
Better
love.
tomorrows and
Yeah.
all that.
Please join us. Purdy Lounge, Miami Beach. We are going to wrap this up. We're going to see you next week. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Caleb, for joining us. And for
Peace.
doing all the audio visual.
God,
This
this guy
guy,
kills it. God.
it's going to get much better from here just because of this guy.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure.
Cheers.